In today's video, I'm going to be learning about the 4-4-2 formation. This is from the coach's voice. It is Sean Dyche explaining the key principles of the 4-4-2 formation and how he used it at Burnley. This is a masterclass. I am diving into the deep end of football tactics. I'm an American football coach. If you're new here and you've never seen my content, my name is Luke. I'm an American football coach, and so I've only been a fan of the beautiful game for 7 months, and so I've been doing a series now where I dive into tactics and learn formations. You guys seem to love the tactic reactions, so let's find out and let's see if we can understand the 4-4-2 formation. All right.
So within the 4-4-2, within the thinking, you've got to win a game, of course. But I always had in my back of my mind, what could we give these players the best to bring the best out themselves?
This will be a long reaction, guys. I'm going to pause.
So to give you a view of life at Burnley Football Club and the main reasons why I often went for a 4-4-2, sometimes literal, got no problem with that. You know, people talked about it for years. Sometimes we adapted it, as I'll hopefully show you. So the basic principle of the 4-4-2, and against popular belief, you know, the modern era of kind of 4-3-3, and now more so in the last couple of seasons, the 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, whichever way you look at it, these formations have been here for years. I mean, you know, like 50, 60, 70 years. There's books out there telling stories of World Cups, you know, 60, 70 years ago where people were playing a version of the 4-3-3. So before we go into the detail, this is my opinion on football. We're talking about yardages. You know, to give you an overview before I go into specifics about us, you drop a player in here and that becomes a number 10, but it's literally 5 yards.
And so I do know that a number 10 would be your central attacking midfielder. This is the playmaker of your offense. This is Messi's position, although maybe sometimes he played a false 9. But essentially, the 10 is the player who is the playmaker of the offense, the attacking midfielder. He is there to assist the striker. The striker would be the number 9. That's basically what I understand of it now. I might be slightly off in that analysis, but I think I'm understanding the number 10 and the number 9 a little better.
So you drop a player in here and then adjust that player there, and that becomes a big difference. And yet, literally, you're virtually on this anyway. It's a matter of yardage. Some teams obviously express this considerably differently. Man City probably the best components of making this really feel different by making the pitch so expansive.
Out of possession, okay? Keep them one side.
So I'll start with us not having the ball, so we're defending. So if you're playing against a 4-3-3, which is often, particularly in the Premier League, so all we're saying is, can we lock on? Can we be brave from start points like goal kicks? But once the game gets going, then we know we're going to have to drop our midfield to deal with their midfield. And all it is one of our centre forwards is dropping around this play here. Against the real top sides, sometimes this player has to go south side when you're defending, particularly as the game moves into this area of the pitch. Often we're trying to keep this player north side. And then they just pivot across the pitch. So, sorry to make that clear, they're playing now across their back four. They
so it's sort of a zone?
2 centre-half split, and they start playing here. So centre forward locks on, stays north side. If they play a fast pass across there, he breaks off and he drops back in. So it's a very simple situation to start from a 4-4-2.
Switch off.
The benefit being,
it's man-to-man, but
it's quite logical for the players to follow. You know, there's not loads of information. That should be quite standard for centre forwards to understand that scenario. Our midfield then, as these are working here, we're always asking, can you be brave and lock on? And for him to be brave and lock on, not literally, but that kind of in between, then this player, imagining the ball's out this side, this player has to tuck in and cover him. So therefore the pressure cover depth scenario is important for this player. And as suggested, we all get across. And now we're trying to lock on that side of the pitch. Slight difference, remember we're talking defensively, slight difference comes if they now go the 2 and the 1. So now they're playing with a number 10, let's say. So yeah, you're going to exaggerate here. So they've got their back 4 opened up, which often happens in the Premier League. The sitting holding 2 midfield players, the number 10, wide players going quite expansive, and the main number 9, you'd call it, who's a bit more free to work against the 2 centre halves. Let's put it that way. So that's slightly different, but all we're saying then is, so if the ball, yet again, just to keep it simple, is this side, we're saying come on them in-betweens here for the first centre forward to kind of get that soft press and guide it that way.
Right.
All we're saying is coming to this in-between position. So now we're saying we almost want to
cutting off those outlet
either
passes.
or actually to this opposite side midfielder. The reason is we're encouraging it now to go that side. So once it goes, and if they do find that pass into there, he comes out of his slot and we get round, or
Nice.
he now works to go and press that side. But the fact is we've kept them that same side and stopped them, stopped them from getting here, getting turned, and now playing out this side. So whatever way we work
So again, this is really similar to what I think I was seeing in the last video. The tactic here is to force the ball on one side of the pitch because you don't want them playing through the middle. At least the way I think about football. I would want to force teams to play from either side of the pitch because they're going to have to play primarily crosses and stuff like that, and you don't want them playing through the middle because if they get the ball into the middle of the pitch, then they've got more options and more open spaces to facilitate the offense and get the ball in places that are a little more precarious for the defense. So, yeah, I think I understand that. Let's force the ball to one side of the pitch, or at least suggest that they keep the ball on that side of the pitch by taking away some of their short passes, by playing that little in-between role, trying to, intercept a pass. So,
in general play, we want to keep one side. We don't really want them to keep shifting and shifting and shifting, which is difficult because often the Premier League clubs do, and they give real depth and they fire the passes quickly around the horseshoe. We want to try and keep them one side and lock them on. As we do so, let's imagine, again, I'll keep it this side. How crunched can we make the pitch? Get over, channel side, always channel side, get round, and we leave this side of the pitch. That's my risk as a manager. Now and again, it's difficult for the fullbacks because they'll say, Gaffer, if he unloads it quickly, how do we get across? Now, the reason for that, I talk with the players about the body language. So this player now, at any given time, I'm going to put that deep layering because it's more familiar in the Premier League. This player now, when he opens up his head and he opens up his body language, we call that the quarterback. So now he's in that position where he can now fire it. So if you see him opening up, even in the Premier League with some of the...
That's funny. That's an American football reference. That's pretty interesting. A quarterback, you can fire the ball. I mean, I guess it would be similar. That player, if he gets his body turned, he's obviously signaling to you that he's trying to open up to where he can have I'm guessing, get the pass over to the other side of the pitch.
Amazing players, and they can disguise things. Can't disguise a 60, 70-yard pass. You need a certain body and a certain power.
Right.
So what we'd offer then, if we can't get the press on, or certainly not in the diagonal passing lane, and he gets time, then we're offering, can he start early? So on his body language, when he fires it, can he start early to get out there early? Give him a chance to get there as quick as possible. If he sets off, he's got to drop in, we get across, and this is where the hard work comes in.
Right, and now we're forcing it to the other side.
Picked it off Eddie Jones, by the way. Hard yards, this is the work. This is when you're Burnley. Not every game, not every home game, but when you're playing the real top side, so I'm imagining now, I'll put them in, you're playing top six, people who keep the ball well, because obviously I'm talking about the defensive side. This is the bit that really counts. How quickly can you operate to press one side, good teams will unload the other side, how quickly can you get across? How quickly can you shut down the other side and yet again compact it, leave the opposite side? Not many can do the diag, back, the diag, back, the diag. They can't do it 3 or 4 times at the trot, on the trot. So it's this first time is really important to get across and go lock the play down very quickly.
Right. Okay, making sense.
As they develop, let's say they develop the game and now they're working into corners and they're bringing fullbacks in, they're bringing their midfield, their higher midfielder in, other midfielder arriving in the box, opposite player, reminding that we're playing against sort of the top sides. Then I mentioned the concept, 4-4, sorry. There we go. Now 4-4. Goalie. I knew there was one change there. 4-4-2. So once we're in this area here, now we've got to work extra hard because we've got to shut down their clever play. And while we're shutting down their clever play, making sure we lock off this V. This is really important for us at Burnley particularly. Wide player, fullback, come and tag team if they've got the big diag, and now they're working in this really aggressive position to try and create chances. We've done well, we've got them moving. By the time they get here, now it's all eyes are alive, red alert. These get across, we've got to shut down these players here because these players often in the Premier League try and combine. First centre forward might come into this first position to try and get play into there, in which case our midfielder has to sink. Our midfielder certainly has to sink into the front side of the penalty spot usually. And our opposite wide man, we ask a lot of our wide players, they have to drop in as well. So then we get this real compact situation inside of the box. Usually one of our centre forwards.
Now what does this do? How do you counter-attack from this if you gain possession? Because you've got everything so compact. Maybe this formation just doesn't lend you opportunities for counter-attack because there's so many numbers behind you. I don't know, I'm trying to think. I'm thinking in real time. I'm not really sure the answer to that, but I'm trying to think of as a coach, what would I do if we regain possession? How are we going to get a counterattack started when we don't have the number advantages? And I know things can change quickly because the game is not played with circles on a table. The game is played with human beings who move much faster than circles on a table. So I understand that there are variables, but I'm just not sure how you'd be able to get a counterattack going if you regain possession in this position.
It's kind of north side ideally, but sometimes it has to be south side. And then we're leaving, just rearrange their players. We're leaving one centre forward up the pitch because we still need an out. Even if we're defending like this, really compact, we still need an out. So that's a kind of scenario. Start point we lock on. They get playing, we shuffle one side. We try and stop the diagonal pass and keep them the same side. If they do get that pass, how quickly can we shuffle and slide across and really work hard to dominate that and stop them continuing to shift the play. Then once we get into this final third, how can we lock down and safeguard the position of maximum opportunity, which is that kind of second 6-yard box. They call it many different names, but this key scoring zone. But what we do is try and crowd out that key scoring zone, and it takes a lot of effort from the players, but football is about effort as well as skill.
So now we're looking at in possession. Okay.
And we've got the ball. What are we going to do with it? So defensive structure is in place. The team should know that. We keep the 4-4-2. We use the 4-2-4-2 wisely because of the simple lines of movement. And we look during that 4-4-2 defensive scenario to use cover space, cover distance, not always man for man, but at some point you have to go lock on man for man, of course. Once the ball's now in our favour, and now we've got a chance to play. So, of course, like anyone, and against some popular belief, we wanted to play out quickly if we could. We wanted to get it out to our centre backs, quickly, or particularly if the opposition were attacking, and it was one of them where it overran to the keeper or something like that. Could we play quickly from the back? And we talked a lot with Tom Heaton down the ears, Nick Pope down the ears, about changing the tempo. So we didn't want the opposition to go back and retreat and sit in their shape. So how many ways could we create a different kind of tempo and feel to the game from a start point being the keeper on this occasion? Could he, for example, throw quickly, usually if they've attacked, out to one of our fullbacks or our wide players, for example? Could he roll quickly and we get playing quickly? Sometimes could he get to the edge of the box and kick it purely to change the feel of a game? Because often, as everyone will know, games look formatted, particularly early in a game. We were saying to Popey, can you change the feel of it? Can you change it in many different ways? Can you throw quickly? Can you play quickly? We're not against playing out from the back as long as it's done quickly before they can sit in and reorganise, because we think that's harder to break down. But equally, get to the edge of the box and kick one early, throw it early to change the feel while it's expansive like this. If we do play out to the centre-backs, I've got a chance to build. we're still saying to the midfield players, can you come and get the ball? We still want them into these pockets to turn and play forwards. That was a key for us, playing forwards first. If not, sideways, backwards, but always forward as many times as possible. If they lock on, then this deep line midfield player can only do one of two things. He can't cover everything all at once, unless you Kante. He can.
Yeah.
Then you get across. So if he comes across on this side, we're saying, well, why can't you land it into the second centre forward? So imagine now, let's use Taki as a player, an individual player on our side. He's got a real good passing range. So why shouldn't he go and use it?
All right, so you're really relying on your center backs being able to be accurate passers here, because if I'm understanding him correctly, which I think I am, we're getting the ball out to the center backs quickly because he's going to have an opportunity to find the open forward to pass the ball up the pitch, especially in this situation that he's drawn out here, because right now, from what I can see, he's got two options to go with, two open players to go with. But yeah, they've got that one midfielder in isolation here. He can't cover the entire pitch. So that's interesting.
And pass into the front. That was one example. Sometimes we'd get more so at home. We'd try and get our fullbacks in advance. Our wide players slightly more inside. Get our centre forwards to run the centre halves away as long as possible. A lot of teams thought we were going to play forwards anyway. So therefore run the play, and then the play gets more expansive. Reminding you of a key thing. Often we're 2 versus 3. So if you're 2 versus 3, it's harder for these to operate. It's harder for these to lose their midfield players. So therefore, once you play here, we kind of were hoping to take that player, not out the game, but make it awkward. So that player now has to turn round the other way. He's facing the other way. He's not facing the play. See what happens here. Of course, if we can land this into chess, keep hold of the ball, then these players are now 2v2 and they can come alive, to give you a view of it. So we are still looking for these to play. Now, sometimes if we could get these in advance, these players, Wesley was really good at it, Corky as well, actually, in different ways, would come really wide, almost into the fullback slot. The reason for that is because this midfielder doesn't really want to go out here, and if you get your timing right, even their wide man has to come back with your fullback, allowing this bit of room here. So this is your central midfield player, by the way. The risk of that is obviously turnover, but then you're looking for this player to be more assured with his touch. Other midfielder comes in to give a bit of balance, and this is where it's important the wide player comes into that inside position when you're attacking, because the thing is in the Premier League that we learn, and we had to change at times, transition kills you in the Premier League. So if you're going to open up like this at times, even Burnley, I mean, other teams do it, you know, because they've got a bit more prowess as a team and a bit more technical quality sometimes, so less turnovers. But if we're trying to keep the ball and work from this shape, you have to be ready for transition. So often we'd keep this wide player in this inside position when the ball's on the opposite side. Now, once we're playing, we're asking, so I'll put Wesley back in, this is our fullback, can we play into the front? That's our first thought. Can we play short here? If we lend it back, can we play into the front? If they're playing high, which a lot of teams in the Premier League attempt to do, if we can play into the first midfield player, can he shape it in behind while they're trying to play high to open up the game? The more times we opened up the game in different ways, the more chances we felt we could create, and the more of a different feel we could create against the opposition, rather than them just sitting in their shape and us trying to pass through them all the time. How many ways could we make it feel different? Often trying to play into the front, got no problem with that at all. Play into there, and sometimes play into the front, come inside.
Yeah, I feel like with this formation, if you let them stay in their shape to defend, it's not going to be hard to defend the 4-4-2, at least from what I'm seeing. It actually matches up quite nicely. So I see what he's trying to say. We're going to try to get a pass in a position where we break up their flow and we force them out of their defensive formation, so that we can change up the look, and then we have an advantage in that situation. When they break their shape, we have an advantage with this formation here. So I think I'm getting that.
I'd lock the game off. So we'd that's our fullback out there. So we get these front four. They'd come inside, 2 centre forwards in, wide men inside, midfield crunch, and we'd go and lock the game in as best possible if we were playing a longer style of football. More so away from home probably than at home. So within that, did we want to play from a start point? Yes. Did we want to play early and change the feel of a game? Sometimes by kicking it, without a doubt. Once we are playing, everyone's got to want the ball. One of the keys is everyone's got to want the ball, because if you don't, you lose that kind of fluid play and then it becomes really disjointed. When we finished 7th, went into Europe, still in the 4-4-2, as what people would see, recognise Burnley rather, as a 4-4-2. But what we did often, so there's their 4, I'm just using the 4-3-3 because it's the most likely in the Premier League, not always, of course. We got Jeff Hendrick to try and play in this role here, and it was from a defensive start point. But Jeff had a real good engine, he had a good eye for arriving in the box. In my opinion, felt he could have got more goals, but he was creative in the way he'd press, he was creative in the runs he'd make, and just almost causing a discomfort for them from having the ball in an attacking format. It was slightly different for us. People weren't as familiar with it. Worked really well that season, amongst other things, but dropping Jeff in there, I think it's probably half the season we played with that kind of 4-4-1-1 scenario. Everyone's still obviously telling us all it's a 4-4-2, of course. But we were trying to adapt this idea.
Yeah, so I would call that a 4-4-2.
Burnley, yes, I believed in the 4-4-2 as my go-to. We did change it many, many times, sometimes with success, sometimes not so much success. But the season we finished 7th, often, or at least half the season, played with Jeff Hendrick coming out of this role here. And make no bones about it, it was a defensive start point of a position. We haven't been in the Premier League that long then, we're still learning. We thought if we get our defensive shape right, it'll give us a benefit of attacking better. And we did so really well over that season. So we tried to adapt this for varying seasons. We had to change the first season that we stayed up. I think it was, we didn't have an away win until 3rd from last game of the season. Our home form was really strong for a team that, not that powerful in Premier League world. So yet again, away from home, that was part of the thinking. We had to go in and say, right, what can we change? So we decided, particularly away from home, we'd drop Jeff Hendrick into this kind of number 10, but a defensive number 10 as a start point. Stay in the game, stay in it to win it, as we say. Then you stay in it to try and win it, especially away from home. But we found it was working quite well, so we did it at home as well. So just give you a view. And one thing I think that's important is, I think to remember is, in the early days, I'm giving an example of a player, and it's a food for thought piece, is when everyone's talking about passing 10-yard football and passing and short passes, which the game's more or less dominated by now, or certainly that thought. We had Kieran Trippier here at right back. Mm-hmm. Now, Kieran's a player who can pass the ball any distance with quality. Seriously, any distance. He's got every club in the bag. So if you've got Danny Ings here at the time, and we didn't stay up that year in the Premier League, but there wasn't major investment.
Like golf reference,
building a training ground and all that. But just to give you a view, because I think it's important to remind people. If you've got Kieran Trippier here, who's got every club in his bag, I would be doing him a disservice as a player by saying you can only play 10 yards into midfield. I'd actually be taken away from his talent base. If you imagine that thinking across the whole of what I and my staff tried to achieve, and the players tried to achieve at Burnley, I'm looking at each player going, how can I give you the best chance of being successful, both as an individual and as a team, and therefore knock that on as a club? And he was a good example of that, because I just felt, hang on, I'm absolutely doing this guy a disservice by saying, I only want you to play into midfield. Because if we got Danny Ings there who can run off the shoulder for fun at that time, and he could find it and did do many, many times with a direct pass. The most penetrative pass in the game is that first pass there. And in my lifetime, Glenn Hoddle, you're going to tell Glenn Hoddle in my lifetime, for those who can remember, to only play 10 yards? I don't think so. So just to give you a little view of it, and I think it's fair for me to do so, because a lot of the 4-4-2, a lot of the design, a lot of the defensive design, and all these things at Burnley was to give the players the best chance to operate, individually and collectively. And I think that was shown not only by the Premier League situation, but the players that we bought in for very low money and moved on for fortunes, and they didn't do that for no reason. They did it because their game developed. So within the 4-4-2, within the thinking, you've got to win a game, of course. But I always had in my back of my mind, what could we give these players the best to bring the best out themselves? So that was part of our format, not just getting involved in modern trends, modern thinking, because it's hard to resist that, by the way, because people are bombarding you with, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? Well, part of it is, and a big part of it is, because I'm looking at my players going, how can I give these the best chance to develop, to improve themselves, to improve their livelihoods, to improve the way they play, but to improve their chance of being in the Premier League. So but some of it was actually quite logical.
So, 4-4-2. I know a lot of people are partial to it because it's something that was popular back in the day. I wonder how prevalent is it right now? Do teams play in a 4-4-2 that often? It seems like it makes a lot of sense. If I was to be coaching, and if I end up coaching, I'll be coaching a high school boys team. I think I would probably tend to like the 4-3-3 the most, but I wouldn't be opposed to running a 4-4-2. I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments below how prevalent a formation is 4-4-2, and yeah, let me know anything else. Maybe answer some of my questions that I've raised throughout this video. Go ahead and like the video if you don't mind. I do have some interesting bonus content that I've been putting out for patrons and channel members. So if you want to support the channel that way, go ahead and join the Patreon or the channel memberships. I've got lots of extra stuff coming y'all's way. Thank you guys for the support. I'll see you guys in the next video.